Hello, C-Note here. Welcome to Cosmic Calibration and DOPEamine. I am your host, Mr. Christian Rivera. I help INTPs and other people connect to themselves and the universe through personality typology. And today, we're in the second part of our series of talking about the cognitive functions for INTPs. We talked about introverted thinking in the last function, went to some weird places, and hopefully you understand that a little bit better, especially if you're someone that is fairly new to typology. It could be really useful to start to understand what's going on in your mind. If you're someone who's a little bit more advanced and you have some comments or you want to add to the conversation, that's always welcome as well. So today we're going to be talking about extroverted intuition. And yes, even though you're an introvert and you're an INTP, there is an extroverted side of you. Everyone has an introverted and extroverted side. And if you think about it, every single human being has to have an input and output so that we can be basically a sane human being, or as close to a sane human being as we can be, right? You think about how your body works too. Like you take in food, you poop out the food, right? Like that's how that works. It's the same way the brain works. You take things in, you put them out. So, or you take things in, then you organize them, I guess, is probably more accurate. But at the same time, like it's about understanding that we have an introvert and extrovert aspects to ourselves, and those are important to understand. So extroverted intuition is fun to talk about because extroverted intuition is our best placed for growth. Personality Hacker refers to it as the co-pilot in their car model, which maybe I'll do a car model episode at some point and kind of talk about that and link it to Personality Hacker, because that's a really great way to understand your cognitive functions. But your second function is the second most important function in your stack, meaning it's going to show up the most other than your introverted thinking. If introverted thinking is about 80% of the time, extroverted intuition is probably like 12 to 15% of the time. It's a decent amount of your day, you know, and if you're really kind of integrating it into your life, you'll be experiencing joy a lot more. Now, extroverted intuition brings with it kind of an inherent joy, because joy kind of brings the opportunity to poke at things. Joy kind of like, it makes things funnier, so you're just more likely to try to make things funnier. And by doing that, you sort of just poke at things and you just like, I don't know, do something weird. And, just kind of see what happens and see how people react, right? For the most part, that's kind of what it is, because we're searching for patterns. So if you look for extroverted intuition in whatever the typology dictionary is, it's going to say something to the effect of pattern recognition and exploration. Exploration is the word that Personality Hacker uses, and I think that is a great word for it, because it's about uncovering new data, new experiences, really more about new experiences, because surfing the internet is not extroverted intuition. But going out and experiencing life, literally walking down a street you've never walked down before, is an extroverted intuitive experience. Because now you're connecting dots and filling in your personal internal map to add to your experience, right? So new ways that you can seek out novelty and add to your experience is a way of accessing and tapping into extroverted intuition, right? So that's another misnomer about extroversion, and that it doesn't have to require other people. It just has to be a new experience, which tends to be around other people if you're in the outside world. It's about being in external reality and not being in your head as much. Now, there are ways to combine intuitive thinking to extroverted intuition, but that's going to be in more detail in the Cosmic Calibration course on how to do that. But introverted thinking is something that without joy can be kind of cold, and you can see how they kind of play opposites with each other, right? You find new information that you can scrutinize and poke at and deduce by experiencing things in the outside world. If you kind of just stayed in your head and ruminated on the same stuff that you know over and over and over again, it's just not. You'll get to a point where you have nothing new to work with, and you're just going to be hitting your head on the chalkboard. Like nothing new is going to happen. Even Albert Einstein, who was an INTP, a lot of his aha moments came from just playing with his kids and experiencing life and going out into the world and doing everyday things. Dr. House is a really amazing example of how this works. Every single episode this happened. He's a diagnostic doctor, and somebody with a weird case came in. He tried to figure things out with his introverted thinking. He couldn't quite figure it out, and it wasn't until he went into the outside world, and then he was like in the shower and he looked at a plunger, and suddenly he was just like, it's cancer. You know? So that's usually the story, right? Something just clicks. And you know how I mentioned in the introverted thinking video that there's that click moment? Extroverted intuition provides the data for that click moment to potentially happen, right? I keep doing it like this because that's just kind of how it works in my brain. There's all this data, and suddenly it's just like, zoom, and it's just like, I know what to do. You know, I've got it. So, you know, another aspect is being playful, and being playful is going to allow you to experience more things. You experience more things and you'll be exposed to more things. So extroverted intuition is about being playful and accessing joy. And by accessing joy, you're going to have more access to more experiences in life. Now, if I can leave you with one piece of advice, that is to go read the book Joyful by Ingrid, I can't remember her last name, but it's Ingrid something. And if you read the book Joyful, it's got like confetti on the cover, and that is a book that will help understand the etymology of joy and sort of breaks down different things that are really interesting about reality that bring about joy, like confetti. And what is it about confetti that brings joy? It's the fact that it's harmony. It's a bunch of little pieces, and it's abundance. It's something that usually you can throw up together, but then it's also something that there's a lot of it. So a lot of small things brings us joy for some reason, unless they're spiders. That's terrifying. But like a lot of marbles in a jar, you're like, oh, that's cool. Or like, I don't know, glitter. I mean, a lot of people don't find glitter very fun, but if you're a joyful person and you look like a little jar of glitter, you're like, ooh, it's all the glitter, right? So that book basically goes through different aspects of finding joy, harmony, surprise, celebration, all sorts of things that bring joy into our lives. And I think it's really great for research for INTPs to find ways to access joy. So color, we have these Christmas lights that we keep up all year long over here. And right here is this is a comic book curtain on our curtains. And you know, we're surrounded by what's called maximalism, and surrounded by things. And I've got all sorts of little bits of joy from my life and childhood surrounding me. Like, that brings me inherent joy all the time. Parappa the Rapper, represent, right? So, you know, surrounding yourself with joy gives you greater opportunity to have a clearer mind and experience more things and see more things, right? And really take in more patterns and more of life, so that when you start to think about things that lead down the nihilism rabbit hole, like I talked about in the introverted thinking, you have more data to parse. You have more experiences to look at. You know, if you're an introverted thinker and all you do is spend time by yourself and have no semblance of meaning, it's very easy to deduce your life to having no meaning. But if you're experiencing joy and you have more things in your life, more things that you appreciate, more things that you experience, more people, more fun, then there's more likely the opportunity that you will find things that you can attach meaning to, or even just think about the sheer possibility and the wonder of the fact that it took basically an eternity, 13 billion years, for our existence to occur. And when you really think about that, that's amazing on its own. That in itself has inherent significance, even though we're only here for like less than a fraction of a blip in terms of the scope of the universe. We can have a great appreciation for our existence and the opportunity to experience it for that amount of time, right? So there's a difference between using introverted thinking to deduce all of the things in life that we narrowly experience versus experiencing a lot of things and showing gratitude and joy and appreciation and applying it to the bigger picture, right? So the introverted thinking, extroverted intuition piece are the two most important aspects of our cognitive function stack, because there's so much you can learn just between those two things being connected, right? Introverted thinking is, again, it's about deducing and slicing and finding the truth, whereas extroverted intuition is giving us all of the tools and the data to use to find what is actually the truth, not just what is left over, right? Something that's a little bit more tangible, meaningful, important than just deducing what's just in our head. But we get to deduce more than that. We get to look at the bigger picture. We get to wonder about the mysteries of the universe. So and I'll leave you with this final thought, that introverted thinking is more about fine slicing in the micro, and extroverted intuition is about pulling out, zooming out into the macro, looking at the world, looking at the big picture, looking at patterns, looking at the way the universe works. That's really the birth of astronomy in a sense. You know, Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, INTPs. Like those are people that have changed the scope of reality, or our understanding of reality, of gravity, of laws of motion, of the theory of everything, which is more of an Stephen Hawking thing, but he's an INTJ. We're not going to worry about him. So accessing that joy is incredibly important for our lives, and accessing extroverted intuition is largely what I talk about in the Cosmic Calibration Program. So the Cosmic Calibration Program is a connection point between you and yourself and you to me. So it's kind of creating a oneness between yourself and all things. It's a little bit woo-woo and spiritual, but it's through a logical lens. There's ways that it makes sense, and it's not about quote-unquote converting you or making you think like I do, but finding a version of it for yourself that resonates with your path in life and the things that you experience for you. We can learn a lot from each other by going through this. So there are 15 audio segments in the Cosmic Calibration course. Go to bit.ly/cosmicintp, all lowercase, and that will allow you the opportunity to go through 15 audio segments and get you direct access to me through Voxer. So through Voxer, we'll be able to connect one-on-one. You can tell me your particular story, your circumstance, what you're thinking, what you're working on, what brings you joy, what you're excited about. And then we can start to really talk about bigger picture concepts and how to get you into a place where you're accessing joy more regularly when there seems to be no joy in life at all, right? When you can just do something ridiculous and have some fun. So bit.ly/cosmicintp, all lowercase. And if you want to check out the podcast, go to DOPEamine.life, DOPEamine.life. That's it. Thank you guys. I have been C-Note, your host and Cosmic Calibrator, and I'll catch you next time on DOPEamine. See ya.